Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life. Naeem Calloway. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay podcast. I am financial planner Canna Campbell. Today, I'm really excited. We are chatting with Aussie debt-free girl, Emily. Now, as you guys know, I am a huge fan of the debt-free community, and particularly Emily, because she has such fantastic content on social media. Everything from, how she cooks and has very budget-friendly meals, preparing for her family, how she manages her bills and her budgets, how she has so many side hustles, how she actually, which is probably how I found her in the first place, how she refurbishes furniture and then sells it. She's full of so many creative hacks. And I'm excited about Emily sharing with everyone right now her story, what she has accomplished, which is, there is a long list here. So Emily, thank you so much for coming on to Sugar Mama's Fireplay podcast this morning. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I want to go back to the very, very beginning of, before you discovered the debt-free community and it's before you started to embrace frugal living. What was your life looking like?
Well, I've kind of always lived frugally, but a lot of that in the beginning was more necessity than, a choice, which I think everybody does when they first move out of home and, finances are tight, all of that kind of.
You have to pay for things.
So I've always been living frugally and had a budget and kind of all about making my money go as far as humanly possible. That just makes sense to me. Why would I waste it when I could get more bang for my buck? And I think some people miss that because I will definitely invest in certain things if it's quality, if I know it's going to last. I'm more than happy to, buy a proper vacuum cleaner if it's going to last me forever rather than like the $50 Kmart ones every 6 months.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things, or a proper handbag rather than, a $20 Kmart one, which again, you only get like 3 or 4 months out of.
Yeah, the stitching comes undone. It starts to look tight and tatty.
The
straps.
pleather.
The pleather. That's not too bad because it's vegan at least. But, I had a beautiful, very budget-friendly handbag I bought last year. And I think the second time I went to wear it, the strap broke. And it was a bit of a wake-up call about investing in quality versus quantity. And I think from what you're saying is you're very much like me. You're not actually frugal, you're more mindful with your money. And I think that's a much more empowering and liberating place to be, because frugal is focusing on scarcity to a certain degree. And whilst I respect and honor, the value of having a frugal skill set to tap into when we need to, it's about knowing, where is the right way to spend our money and invest our hard-earned money.
I try and focus my money where I think I'm going to really appreciate it, I suppose. Like, we do eat very healthy, but we eat on a good budget. And if I can get, the same food for less price, why wouldn't I? And I just feel like that's the smarter way to live. And also, I feel like being too frugal and not smart about it can spite yourself a lot of the time. You actually end up spending more money on the quantity of items rather than the quality of items. And that's part of how I found you, is you investing in certain pieces of your wardrobe, or having that sort of cost capsule idea.
Yeah. And also, it's the longevity of those items. It's the environmental benefits. And that's why, one of the many reasons why I love the pre-loved economy, because, that's how my most expensive handbag that I purchased was a pre-loved one. I wouldn't have been able to afford it brand new. And, you're reducing landfill. You're, able to invest in timeless classic pieces, which, transcend the fashion trends that come and go. And also they still, when they're really well made, they still look brand new when you put them on for the 365th time. I really do believe in, mindfully shopping. Now, you've obviously, as you said, you started off being frugal out of necessity. You moved out of home. The reality of when we move out of home, it's all very exciting, the glamour and the freedom and liberation that comes from it. But then you realize, oh, I've got to pay for toilet paper and cleaning products, and I have to pay rent and electricity and all those things that, when we lived at home, we were wrapped up in a cotton ball and protected from. So I can completely relate to that shift and that wake-up call as the reality of those bills comes in. Talk me through your financial journey, because you have achieved so much, and I want to list all your accomplishments in a second, but I want to hear about where it all began.
When I was 18, nearly 19, I was kicked out of home. So I was kind of suddenly, that I had to fly.
Yeah,
and,
sink or swim. Yeah.
Exactly, sink or swim and get started and just find my feet. And getting started and finding your feet without any financial or family support is incredibly hard.
Really hard. I'm so sorry.
No, it's made me the person I am today.
That's true.
Part of sort of my journey and my crucible, I guess. And then finding an income, and then how managing that income, because obviously a very small income, to support myself, and then later on to support my children that I had several years later.
That must have been very frightening at the time.
Exactly. And I mean, I had zero income at that point. In fact, I had to move 3 hours away to have a place to stay and then sort of start again. So like no roots to fall back on, no support systems. And I had no income. So I was staying in a friend of a friend's garage and doing chores for rent while I got my feet under me. But I'm super grateful for that. Without that, I would have been in a completely different place. But I started from literally zero income, $0, nothing.
You're practically homeless.
Exactly. And they paid to feed me, and I paid them with childcare and taking care of the house, and basically being a stay-at-home mum, wife to this lovely lady.
Wow. So even in a challenging situation, you were so creative in coming up with a solution, not ending up on the streets or in a hostel or a refuge. You got creative and found a brilliant solution of, almost like a co-op, almost, trading, your childcare skills and cleaning and, housekeeping in lieu of accommodation and some food. Like what a creative strategy and solution to come up with at such an emotionally crippling time, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, and I think that also helped in all of this because I was using my skills there to help her manage her money, and I would do the shopping and I would manage the food budget and make all the meals and do all of that. So making it go further, because obviously you don't want to feel like a burden, even though you're doing all of this hard work, they're still putting money out of pocket where you're not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Where did you go from there? Like what made you decide, okay, this is obviously a great solution and holding pattern for me right now, but obviously I need to get my own place, or I need to get a more secure job, or a second or a third or a fourth job in your case. Where did it go from there?
Well, this all happened the sort of end of 2009. So the job situation was not great. And nobody was really hiring people, straight out of high school with no experience. They were looking for people that, had experience and all of that. So I ended up working in a call center for Telstra, or like a company that worked for Telstra for a while.
Okay.
And paying rent to the lady and still doing a lot of childcare and house stuff, but paying rent to the lady. And eventually I met my then partner, and we saved up a bit and moved out into a share house of our own.
Yeah.
And then eventually a house of our own. And then that all fell apart.
Yeah.
I found out I was pregnant at 22. And I actually have some very severe fertility issues, so I was never meant to be able to have children.
Wow.
So it was like less than a 1 in a billion chance of me conceiving.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
obviously I was very attached.
Of
And
course,
even
of
though it was
course.
a great situation, because I was still working at the call center and commuting and living in this little house with a partner, I wanted to keep the baby. And
Yeah.
he did not want to be in a relationship with me anymore. So we had decided that we were going to move to a different or bigger house as our lease was ending. So we both packed up. I put all of my stuff into storage, and he didn't have a lot, so he just took his with him to go and stay with some friends while we got a new lease sorted.
Yep.
It was meant to be maybe a week or two, of overlap between the leases. And I went to stay with my grandmother.
Yep.
And then once we were out and the lease was all ended and got the bond back and everything, he told me he no longer wanted to be in a relationship with me. So at that point, I was basically homeless.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm pregnant and single and paying for a storage facility for my stuff and having to sort all that out. Over the course of the pregnancy, I lost my job because of the pregnancy. The people that I was working for were not supportive.
Wow.
So I ended up homeless while I was pregnant with my son, and couch surfing and sleeping on people's floors. And then at 38 weeks pregnant, I managed to get a housing commission house after being in a women's shelter for 3 or 4 weeks. And then from there, I was able to I had 2 weeks, and I'd saved up as much as I possibly could over the pregnancy, sleeping on couches and sleeping on floors and stuff. So I didn't have to pay for a motel, all of that. And while I was in the shelter, I saved up everything I could. So at 38 weeks, we moved into, I and my soon-to-be baby, moved to our new house. And housing commission houses come with no curtains, no curtain rods, no floor coverings. It's just cold concrete. Nothing.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Nothing. So I took $500 from that I'd saved up, and I bought a secondhand fridge, and I bought carpet tiles and put down laid carpet at 39 weeks pregnant. So because I couldn't have a baby on concrete floors, and it'd be too cold. And then I scoured Marketplace for great deals, and I got him a cot and a change table and everything he needed, and finally got my stuff out of storage and into my new house.
Yep.
And then I had my baby.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You were an incredible human being. You have paid off almost $60,000 worth of debt in your life. You have built up an emergency money, which has been extremely valuable at some really challenging times in your life, which I'm sure we'll hopefully touch on in a second. You've also started building up a deposit to buy your own place as well. And you've done this all on an income of less than $50,000. Wow, you are so focused, you are so driven, and you are so determined to refuse to accept situations that you've been thrown into or have been thrown at you. Just determination just to keep going, keep pushing through, keep coming up with a bigger solution, a better solution, and just not take no for an answer, not just lie down and roll with it, but actually try and build a better, happier life for you and your children. Where did you go from here as a single mother now living in housing commission that's previously been homeless? Again, your resources of, building, turning a house into a home is fantastic. Where did it go from there?
So from there, we lived extremely frugally. I walked everywhere. I did invest in a good pram because I knew I would not be driving, couldn't afford a car, and all the things that come with costs of having a car. So I knew I'd be doing a lot of walking. So I did invest in a brand new, good quality pram, which is about $300, which is a lot when you're in this position.
Yeah, of course. And I have to say, a good pram is worth it. I've had experiences where my cheap pram has, I've gone around a corner too tightly and the pram has toppled over, Yeah. And so, yeah. Or in one situation, I had the wind actually almost blow the pram over. So yeah, I agree with you. The investment of a pram is worth it. So you like, did you work? How did you work with a newborn baby? Or did you work at all? Like what, like, were you getting government support? Like, what were you
At that
doing? Because
point,
even on
I
government
was
support, there's nothing. Like, it's such a miserable existence.
Well, at that point, I was unable to work due to having absolutely no support. The father wasn't around, and I obviously have no family support. And I had to move to a different area because you take whatever you can get when there's housing commission. So I had no friends really where I had moved to. So there was
Yeah.
not like I could have anyone babysit or anything like that. Also, I ended up having a C-section and some medical complications. So I
Oh
was
my
sort of
gosh.
unable to do a lot other than just keep me and my son alive at the time for a
Yeah.
while and get used to being a mum.
Yeah. Which
So
is a
I just
huge passage in itself, let alone doing it on your own with no money and absolutely no family and friends around you. Like, it's a massive transition and passage. And oh my goodness. Wow.
Exactly. So I did receive government support, which at the time was about $1,100 a fortnight. So not a ton, but
No.
obviously super grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a ton of money. And then I would pay rent and food and everything. But I would do things like I would walk to the grocery shop, which was about 2.5, 3 kilometers away from the house. And then I would pay for a taxi to bring my son, the pram, me, and the food home. And then the nice taxi driver would unload it onto the ground for me so I could just run it back and forth with the pram.
Of course, just
But
the
I would do
C-section.
that once a month because then I would only have to pay one taxi fare home. And I know it's only 3 kilometers, but it was still about $15 for the taxi. So
Yeah.
$15 I only have to pay once a month is obviously much better than every week.
Oh, and also on a tight budget of, $1,100 per fortnight, every dollar counts. You have to be mindful and frugal as to where that goes, and particularly if the consequences of you doing any damage and tearing stitches, is so important. I'm in awe, and I'm in awe of your strength and determination just to keep to go with this, but also I'm so disgusted in our system for not having the right support systems in place to help people and women in situations like you. I'm like, God, I wish I knew you then. I wish I knew. I guess I don't even think we even had social media in 2009, really. So I could have helped you in some way. Like your story is incredible.
I was 22 at the time, so it was 2013.
Okay, 13. Okay, so Instagram probably had just awoken.
I didn't find Instagram until 2018.
Oh, okay.
I'm behind.
Okay, and so as your son got a little bit older, did you get work? Like, how did you keep going? How did you get through?
So while I was a single mum, even though I was living on this extremely tight budget of $1,100 a fortnight, I was actually saving up money, and I managed to save about $3,000 very slowly, $10 here when I came in under budget on groceries and $20 here when the power bill was less than I thought it was going to be, those kinds of things. And selling his old baby stuff on Marketplace to then pay for, the toddler stuff, all of that kind of thing, trying to keep that cycle sort of going and making sure I'm holding on to every single dollar. Then I met my now fiance. He was in a rough place as well at the time. And then we eventually got together, moved in together. He was working part-time job and I was running the house and the budget and everything.
Yeah.
And he would bring his wage home, plus the little I still got from Centrelink as a partnered mum. And we were saving and preparing for the life we wanted to live.
Yeah.
And then I found out that he had about $45,000 in debt that I didn't know about. And I found this out a couple of weeks after finding out I was pregnant with our second.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. From coming from such a frugal background and history and being so mindful with your money and being so incredibly responsible with every single dollar in your life, How did that make you, how did you feel when you heard this? Like he revealed his dirty financial laundry to you?
Well, he didn't exactly reveal it so much as I accidentally stumbled upon it.
Ah,
We'd had open conversations about things, but the problem was he didn't really see the debt as a problem. He was of the mind, he was head in the sand about it. So it had never occurred to him to mention it to me
yeah,
until
okay.
one day he asked me to do something for him. I think it was pay rego or something. And so I logged into his email to get the rego notice that you pay. And there was a collections email. And I'm like, hey, what's this collections email? And he goes, I don't know, have a look. And I found several collections,
Mhm.
agencies, and debts. And we discussed it. And I said to him, there's no way we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do, move to a bigger place, buy a new car, buy a house together, and have that life that we're looking at if we're carrying around $45,000 worth of debt or
Yeah,
more, because obviously this is accruing interest while he's not looking at it, because
yeah.
that's the kind of financial literacy he has or
Mm,
had at the
mm,
time. It was
mm.
just, I don't look about it, it's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So we chatted about it and I said that this is not okay. And he said, okay, um, if you want to pay it off, we can pay it off. And I came up with a plan. I handed all the finances over to me, as long as he had a little bit of money to spend each week, which he was happy with.
Yeah.
And I started knocking down debts.
Yeah. So okay, $45,000 in debt. You're on Centrelink and literally you've got the habits and the hacks of, counting every single dollar, but that's a lot of debt to owe, $45,000, especially with your
Exactly.
limited resources. Where did you start and what did you do?
So I didn't exactly follow Dave Ramsey and I didn't exactly follow Barefoot Investor. I came up with my own plan that made sense to me. And the first things that made sense to me was to list everything out, smallest to biggest, all of the interest rates, all of the monthly payments, what he's making payments on and what is sort of sitting in collections and we don't have payment arrangements on. So what's the most urgent, and also what is going to affect his credit rating the most?
Yeah.
Because I obviously want those gone as soon as possible so that his credit rating has time to bounce back before we're at the point that we're ready to buy a house.
Yeah.
And psychologically, I knew knocking off some of the smaller ones would be super motivating to him to
Yeah.
see that even though that it wasn't dropping by, hundreds, like thousands and thousands, that it would be good for him to say, see, hey, we had 14 lines on this. Now we have, 10. Let's just start working it off.
This is my hit list strategy. I say to people, juggling debts, particularly multiple debts, is like juggling balls in the air. If we take one ball out of the air, so you're juggling 13 debts or balls instead of 14 balls, it's going to be that little bit easier. So the quickest and easiest way to get one of those balls is to target the smallest, easiest one first. It's the psychology of writing all those debts out, the smallest debt to the biggest debt, and ticking them off. I've got a tile on my Instagram account that says progress fuels success, because exactly as you've done with your partner, showing him the progress that you're making. Look, one less person we need to worry about on our backs that we owe money to. You free up the energy and the space to use the resources you're using to originally pay that person with the smallest debt now to the person with the second smallest debt. And to a degree, it's a form of the snowball strategy, but it works. And yes, it might cost you a little bit more in interest. I don't believe it does take long, because I think the psychology of this is much more motivating and inspiring, and therefore you work harder and faster and more efficiently at targeting the debts. That's how I've coached thousands of people out of huge amounts of debts. And I know we're saying $45,000 is a lot of debt. I've seen people, the biggest record debt I've ever come across, and believe it or not, this was credit card debt, was $360,000.
That's insane.
Yeah. The person was earning a lot of money, but still, like, that's just excessively toxic. I don't really understand how they actually managed to get into that position in the first place. But anyway, that's another story for another time. You pulled resources, you worked together as a team, you communicated, you had a budget, you had a game plan, which is so important, and you agreed on everything so that you went, okay, let's do this together.
I want to say yes to this, but actually he did not want to see the budget. He did not want to know the numbers. He gets anxious. He came from a very low income sort of mindset, and he had lots of siblings growing up. So he's got a bit of a scarcity mindset. So seeing those numbers and seeing all that was actually really demoralizing to him. So the psychology for him was, it was better if I did it all. And if he wanted to know something, he could always ask me. And if there was something big, or I had a big decision that I needed to make, I could run it past him. But the rest of the time, he didn't really want to think about it, because it would make me work harder. But for him, it demoralized him, and he was unable to sort of get past that. So we kind of had to work to his psychology and my psychology, what works best for us, which was, he has his $50 a week to buy whatever he wants, drinks at work, whatever it is. And I have everything else in a joint account, and I make sure everybody gets paid, and I find those $5, $10 payments to pay this off. And then over the course of paying off that $45,000, we moved to a bigger place. We were now a family of 4. So that was a necessity for us while we're still paying off debt. And then unfortunately, as things happen, at the time we were working with a $1,000 emergency fund that I had saved up, because I used the rest of my savings to just knock out chunks of debt. The car we were using at the time, he had a motorbike, it was stolen. I got him a cheap car. We got that registered and on the road, and less than 2 months later, it died, and it was going to be more to fix it than to replace it. So unfortunately, it died on the Saturday, and if he didn't turn up to work on the Monday, he would lose the job. So I had to go out and get a car loan in my name. And I don't do debt. I've never had debt. I don't want anything to do with debt. But I had to get a car loan in my name because of the state of his credit through all of this debt, which we got and paid off in less than 15 months. But that brought us up to that $60,000.
Just
about 15.
Wow. So look, but I just want to quickly go back to what you were saying about your partner and him, that, I guess, that resistance, you could say. And not being, not necessarily being 50-50 in your financial goals and agreements and strategies. That's actually perfectly normal and perfectly fine. You don't have to be in agreement with everything. And that quite often, it's life. Like,
wanted the things we wanted. He wanted the goal. He just could not physically do or be a part of the mindful part of the grind to get there. Like, he could pick up extra hours, he could do side hustling and extra jobs, all of that, and he was keen for that. But if he saw those numbers and he saw that sort of big hole we were throwing money into, it's just too much for him.
And that's okay. And I think this is a very common theme in a lot of relationships to various degrees. And even just as a little insight, with my relationship with Tom, like, I take control of the finances. In most relationships, there's always going to be one person who's more dominant. I say dominant in an empowering way and in a beneficial way, because it means they go, all right, this will be my domain. I'll make sure I take care of it and communicate everything to you and what to do as a team. But you can take some stress and pressure off your shoulders, knowing that I'm looking after this and we're heading in the direction that we've achieved. So that is really very, very normal. And everyone is on their own journey, especially their own journey around financial education. So whilst, and to a certain degree, Tom's like, Canna, I don't want to know about a budget. I want to know that we have a budget. I want to know that we're achieving our goals. I want to know that our mortgage is coming down, but I don't need to know that, we have to spend this much on gas or this much on electricity or this much on, he doesn't, he also, and I don't know if it's a male thing or a female thing, I don't know, but I think maybe it's a mother thing as well. And you've got to work with people's boundaries. You've got to really respect people's boundaries. And, whilst, Tom doesn't want to know certain things, definitely over time, through slow empowerment, inspiration, sharing our progress, sharing our goals and dreams, he has come around and is a lot more interested in okay, let's look at a bit more of the finer details. And he's not so like can't be bothered too hard, that resistance, that like brick wall, bury your head in the sand. Like, so I think what you're sharing with us is I think a lot of couples listening to this will be like, yeah, my partner's like that, or I'm like that in that relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. What my advice is go slow and steady, respect each other's boundaries, but always be open to learning, but always come from a place of, and this is exactly what you've done it beautifully, is come from a place of love and kindness, education and empowerment. So it's not that you've ever done this, from the sounds of it, you've done the opposite. Never belittle someone for not knowing or understanding. So much poverty can boil down to, lack of financial literacy. And that's not an individual's fault. It's a systemic problem. Financial literacy is not taught in school. It's not even taught in tertiary education. And I have CEOs and managing directors that I look after in my financial planning practice, that's financial, that are on huge salaries. And they don't know how to budget. They don't know how to manage their cash flow because that's what they pay me to do for them. So it's not a wealth thing either. It's something it's a self-education journey.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it also was that we kind of knew our roles as well. So we were able to really get more confident in ourselves and our decisions and backing ourselves more in the choices that we were making.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And by the way, you guys had some really good hustles. Like your partner was doing some landscaping work on the side to bring in some extra money. Like you had a whole range of creative hustles. Can you share some of those?
So he would do massive landscaping projects. Like he would put in decks, pour slabs, put up, those beautiful 6-foot fences and the electric gates and stuff, like those big, massive things. And then he would also do things. I started a little, I don't know if I can say it because I'm pretty sure it's trademarked now to somebody else, but I started a little Facebook page, and it was Rent My Person, because I can't say what it is.
Okay, that's now. Right. That's all right.
But he would do things like, for example, there was a lady who was in a wheelchair and she got some IKEA flat packs she couldn't put together. So he went over, he put them together for her. She made him a cup of tea and gave him $40 to put these massive flat packs together and put them into place. So like those kind of like weird odd jobs that were sort of in our area, not too far away, wouldn't really cost us anything other than a little bit of time on, a Sunday afternoon, or mowing someone's yard real quick and whippersnippering. Those little things added up to quite a bit quite quickly, especially in the beginning of the journey.
Wow, so you turned to the community to help you get through this situation, get through this challenge of the $60,000 of debt that you are now facing. Like, again, you didn't take no for an answer and just go, oh, it is what it is, we'll just have to roll with it. You were like, stuff that. No, we're going to pay this debt off. And turn to the community, got creative.
He actually lost his job. Right. So we moved into that bigger place from Housing Commission. We moved into that bigger place, and we moved in on the 19th of December, and he lost his job on the 22nd of December, 3 days before Christmas. And we just moved into a bigger house. We just paid the bond. We just paid the 2 weeks in advance. The shop was closing down over Christmas, and they'd sold it, and it was going to have new owners and new staff open in the new year, but no one had told the employees because they were casual until the last day he worked.
What is wrong?
So all of a sudden we were without an income again. So I started that Rent My Person thing and like a little business, and that got us through paying the rent, just the rent, for a couple of months until he was able to get a new job. It was nearly a year of just us side hustling to make an income, and him picking up some part-time casual work where he could. But it was nearly a year until he got his now job. And over that period, we went from, when we were in Housing Commission, we had a total income of $20,000 a year. And then the next year it was about 27,000, and then the next year it was about 35, and now we've only just we should hit about 55 this year, 60 with some hustling, hopefully. Wow. So we've never been on a lot of money or a lot of income, and we've had this massive weight of all of that debt on our backs.
And challenges.
And getting that Exactly. And that's how it goes. I mean, that's why we have emergency funds and things, right? We know it's not going to be perfect. We know stuff is going to go wrong. So we just kind of have to prepare for it.
Yeah, no, and everyone should have emergency money. It's so important. Have you paid off all the debt now? Are you debt
Yes,
free?
we've been debt free since March 2020.
How does that feel?
I paid the last payment on the car.
Ooh, how does it feel like to be debt free?
Honestly, I was a little, and this is something I don't think people really talk about, but I was expecting this big kind of almost climactic, like big rush of endorphins and happiness. And I was definitely happy and I was definitely relieved. But I think because it had been a long journey, I'd built it up in my head accidentally. So I was a little underwhelmed.
Yeah,
But then,
almost like a anticlimax.
it was, honestly, it was. I mean, I was happy, but then I was like, so we're at zero. Like, we're at zero. That's it. We're at zero. Like, I'm happy to be at zero, but like at the same time, I'm starting from nothing. And then changing from paying debt to that savings mindset, changing back was kind of, it was a little bit harder to get back into that because I've always loved saving, but I spent so much time just focusing on, oh, I have $5 left over in the account, quick, pay it to the car. And then we would joke about, hey, I own that wheel now, I own it. And then like only this much more of the car to go. And then I think it didn't really hit until April.
Yeah.
When I'd sort of had an entire month of no debt payments. Like I didn't have to pay anybody anything, and all of our bills were paid and ahead. And I'd saved, because I was in that sort of mindset, that squirreling away money mindset. I'd saved about $1,000 towards our new emergency fund, and I'd taken a look at everything and went, I can breathe. I can breathe. And I think it didn't hit me for a while, honestly.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hit him either for a long while. It took a while because I guess he didn't see it. He couldn't see like anything physically.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that, and it's probably because you were so focused and so determined. You had your head down, bum up, and were just in this zone that when you came out of the tunnel, you hadn't even probably realized that you were out of the tunnel yet, which is why it took a month for you to go, oh wow, instead of throwing all my energy to the debt, I actually now have this little pool of energy that I get to keep for myself. And
Exactly.
it wasn't until you saw that, that little pot of money all staying in your name only, not having to be owed to someone or be taken by someone. It was something you got to savor and enjoy, and admire almost, for yourself. That's when that reality kicked in.
Honestly, now I think if I could make a recommendation for people that are on the debt-free journey or about to finish, I think, one, don't build it up like I did. Two, give yourself a lot of grace and maybe take a month, as long as you have an emergency fund to get you through, but take a month for just self-care and maybe buying a few luxury items and just those little celebrations, because they're so important. And I mean, it was as simple as like getting Chinese takeaway, because I mean, let's be honest, Chinese takeaway is not the cheapest takeaway. Like getting like a big thing of Chinese takeaway and buying some more treats and I think I went and got my nails done or something. It was something silly or something little, and it just made me feel like I could take ownership of it. Like I did this, it's done. And I think that's what really helped me to be able to hit the ground running again with saving. I don't think I would have been able to hit it with such ferocity if I didn't take that sort of month to regroup, because it's so taxing.
It is. And it's so important to have little rewards along the way. Obviously, you don't want the reward to then backfire and get you back to where you started from or be detrimental, but those little rewards along the way. And that's why I always say to people who are going through the debt-free journey or working on their financial goals, and that is always document your progress so that you can see the progress you're making. You can say, okay, well, now we owe $44,300 and today's date. Only a month ago, that was $45,000. All right, it's small steps. Every dollar counts. We're heading in the right direction. But along the way, you have rewards. So you go, all right, well, when we hit 40,000, let's go and have a Sunday afternoon, a picnic in the park, and they don't necessarily need to be things which you reward yourself financially. They can be frugal things still, but it's so important to stop along the way and go, all right, we're making progress. We've done really well. We're going to have a little treat or a little reward. It doesn't have to be excessive or expensive, but it's just to stop and acknowledge that you're working really hard. You're working as a team. You're trying. You're both pulling your weight, and that you're on this together as a team is just so incredibly important. And we did that.
I just think that I was feeling a little deflated at the end, and I think I just needed a little bit more of like recovery time, I think is what it was more. Just a little recovery time and a little, it was less reward. It was just more like self-care, because I felt like I drained it, because that last month we weren't meant to be paid off until May. And in that last month, I worked my bum off. And I mean, I was selling.
I don't doubt you the slightest after hearing your story. I bet you would be probably one of the hardest working people
I was
ever
looking
hear from.
at it and going, May. I wonder if I can squeeze it to April. And then as I was squeezing to April, suddenly I realized that, hey, there's only $400 left on this car. I could, and I don't recommend this, I could pull $400 out of my emergency fund right now, pay this car off, be debt free, breathe, and then next week replace it. And then the week after I can build it. And then the week after that, it'll be at $2,000. But I looked at it one day and went, no, I'm done. Today, I'm making the payment. I'm calling them right now.
Just get it out of my life for good. Yeah. So, all right. So you're debt free. And then you went, okay, and this is what I recommend to everyone. Get the debt out of your life, get the monkey off your back, and then start building up emergency money so that you never repeat history. You never have to reach for a credit card. You never have to borrow money. You never, you learn from your mistakes. You have emergency money. So you started building the emergency money after having a bit of a financial sabbatical and recharging your batteries and having that moment of self-reflection and giving yourself a very much overdue and rewarded pat on the back. You built some emergency money up, and did you use all the same strategies and habits and hacks?
I will admit, I did let go of one or two side hustles that were more draining for me, like mentally, and focused more on the ones that I felt I could build, but also maybe I enjoyed more, or like I felt more passionate about, or just made more sense to me.
Yeah.
So I did
joyful.
Change things a little bit, but I then just hit it again like we did. And I figured, especially with the way hubby is, that if we sort of kept that same rhythm and lifestyle, there wouldn't be any pushback as this savings build. He never knows what's in our actual savings account because he doesn't want to know, because if he sees it, his first response is to spend it. And he said that so many times. Like the first thing I hear in my head as soon as I see it is, I'm going to buy this item. So he's like, I don't want to know. I just want to know we're doing good, or where if we have to pay for something big and, maybe this week we're going to be a little bit tighter, I just say, hey, we're going to be a little tighter on the budget this week. Don't go too crazy. Or, hey, we're doing really well. We're back sort of in a rhythm.
And this is why I use the analogy of my podcast of the ocean, and being able, like, what I want to teach people is how to swim in all the different conditions. So, the ocean is always moving. We've got currents that are pulling and pushing, and there are waves, and there are temperature changes, there are storms, there's winds, and we need to know how to keep our head above the ocean. And even better, we need to know how to surf the different waves, and surf the waves in a way that preserves our energy, allows us to efficiently move from one part of the ocean to the next, but also to be able to read the conditions as well. And this is what you are essentially doing, is working together as a team, looking at your situation and, adjusting it, because life's not always smooth sailing. Life's not always sticking to your budget and every bill coming in is exactly as expected. Life happens. We get our car stolen, we lose our jobs, we get an unexpected bill, fridges break, we have a dental bill or a medical bill, or a sudden family emergency, and that things just happen out of the blue. That's just life. Like, we've got to use those swimming skills of learning how to work through the oceans and handle all the changing conditions all the time, because life's not stagnant. And we're foolish if we ever think that it's going to be. And I know you had a situation with your son who got sick, and you had all this emergency money, and it got down to pretty much ground zero again. And as deflating as that would have been, I read somewhere that you were so grateful to have that emergency money, because if you didn't have that emergency money, you would have been back in debt again.
Yeah, and I would have had to worry. I was able, with everything that was going on, it was very scary and dark stuff because of the things that could have possibly been causing what was happening. He was having some very large, uncontrollable, massive seizures out of nowhere. Like, he was completely normal. And then one day just got hit with these massive 20, 30, 45-minute seizures of being deeply unconscious.
Oh my God.
So I was so grateful for the money because I was able to not worry financially about how we were going to pay the rent, how we were going to do all those things when I was in the hospital with my son, when my partner then had to take annual leave and we're suddenly on base pay, no more overtime, when I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow, when the school calls me every other day. I could get a call from the school and I'm suddenly rushing to the school, and then I'm rushing to the hospital and driving to specialist appointments and staying in the city and having to park the car for several days in the city at the hospital. I mean, these things cost a ton of money.
Huge.
But I'm so grateful I had it.
Yeah.
Because imagine if I didn't.
And the last thing you want to be worried about is money. At a time when you've got a sick child or a sick family member or a sick friend or even a sick pet, it shouldn't be about money. It should be, all right, I'm here with them. I don't need to worry about the bills. I don't need to worry about the rent. I can pay for someone to help cover me because I need to be with whoever, my child or my pet or my parent or my friend right now. Like it's the furthest thing away.
Ability that I could say the public system is great, but the public system is also very slow. And what was happening to my son was happening extremely fast, and it was escalating extremely fast. And I was worried that at any moment he could have a seizure and just not stop breathing, just gone. So having that money also meant that I was able to contact private specialists and pay to go and see them. And every appointment was nearly $600, which is a ton of money. I mean, that's pretty much our entire weekly budget almost. But having that there where I could just say, I'll take the first appointment. If you have a cancellation tomorrow, I will be there. And being able to pay for that and not having to worry about scraping together the money or waiting for Medicare rebates. I mean, I'm happy to get money back later, but being able to pay for things up front and any medication he might need, because you never know what's going to happen. And, you know, suddenly I'm taking weeks off here and I'm side hustling, but I'm, you know, sitting next to a hospital bed doing surveys on my phone to make a little bit of extra money while my son is, you know, sleeping in a hospital bed, while my husband is off, well, fiance at the moment, is off work and taking care of my 3-year-old, and she's worried because she doesn't know what's going on. And nobody can really reassure anyone because we don't know what's going on. The doctors don't know what's going on. So I feel like having the certainty that we could pay for everything in a time that was so uncertain was huge. It was honestly probably one of the cornerstones that helped me through it, because I think any more stress and I would have broken, if that makes sense. I was riding at my limit. And I think as a mum, you when your kid's sick and you can't do anything, like you can't make it better, that's just a horrible feeling.
When I was researching about you and your story and like jumping from, you know, site to site, and I came across this one thing you said, and it was about, you know, seeing as you finally got towards the end of the torture and the trauma of your son being sick, and you finally had worked things out, and your emergency account was to zero. And you said in the article, it's okay because with my emergency money, I can do it all again. I can save it all again. And I just love that, you know, you were like, that resilience for you to go, it's all right, we'll get back. Like such a positive attitude, and in a time where most people, including myself, would have crumbled to a million pieces on the ground.
I don't know how positive it is, because I guess my mindset through all of this, through everything, has been, I'm going to do it because I have to, if that makes sense. I have to provide for my kids. I have to give them better, and I have to teach them to be better and give them a better start than I had. And that's what this has all been about. I found out I was pregnant. I was homeless. I never had a choice to not do it, because there's a tiny person relying on me. And the same thing through all of this has been, I'm going to pay off debt so one day I can have a house that he can paint his room in, and a house that she can put a ballet bar up on the wall if she wants. It's giving them more than I had, and also teaching them that no matter where they're starting from, and no matter how far they fall, and we've fallen a few times pretty low, that you can claw your way out. And the other thing is that nobody is going to help you. I mean, it'd be lovely if they did, but no one's going to help you, and no one's going to do it for you. So be upset, mourn the loss, oh God, that was a lot of money, but then, okay, let's do it again. Let's fix it.
Draw a line in the sand, move on. And as you say, you can do it again. You can do it.
Exactly. And I do think it is a little important to acknowledge it, and not whine, but mourn it a little bit. Because I mean, it did really, really hurt to see our house deposit. We just hit $10,000 when all this happened. We just hit that 5 figures, and it did physically kind of hurt me to see, once we burned through the emergency fund, obviously the house deposit becomes the emergency fund because that's the priority. And then as we started eating away at the house deposit, it was a little demoralizing for me, but I acknowledge that, and this is what you have to do, and we do what we got to do.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you underestimate your tenacity and strength as a person. A lot of people just go, give up and stop trying. And you are such a true inspiration of it for anyone, not just in it going through a challenging situation similar to what you've gone through, but to anyone at any phase and stage in their life. You give people such a great sense of perspective, such a positively contagious energy and pizzazz for life. And what are the 3 things that I just loved reading about you and learning about you is, number 1 is you are so creative. You no matter what situation was thrown your way, you creatively found a way around it, whether it be, living in someone's garage, offering them babysitting work and helping them run their household, to refurbishing pieces of furniture, to I'm going to say hiring or renting out your partner for handyman things. Like, you're so creative. And the second thing I love about you is, and this is, I think, really important in a world where we often are filled with doom and gloom, and that is your sense of gratitude. Every single dollar you made count. That $5 at the end of the month was left over in your account. People go, so what? It's $5. I'll just go and get, buy something with it or get a soft drink with it. No. You made that count. You put that towards the debt. You showed gratitude to every single dollar, and what we appreciate appreciates, and you made it all count. And of course, those hacks and habits are what helps build wealth as well as paying off. People forget about that. And of course, your determination. You never accepted no. You never accepted the situation and you are such an incredible role model to your children, but also to myself and every single person listening to this podcast right now. So I thank you. As we look to wrap this podcast up in a second, I can't thank you enough for being so open and sharing with absolute authenticity and transparency your journey, all the hard, all the lows. And I can only hope and pray that your life, all that stuff is now behind you, and it's only goodness and joy that come flying your way. I wish you every single money magnet in the world, so that you can continue on your journey. And please continue on sharing your story with people.
I think it's really important, because I wish that I could see someone like me, your average person, your average mum, doing any of this, I just think seeing somebody that you can relate to doing these things gives you the motivation where you maybe didn't have it before. There are these amazing people in the debt-free community doing amazing things on all sorts of incomes. But I just think finding someone you can personally relate to, whoever that is, and seeing them doing it helps inspire you to make those small little changes every day that then add up to a lifestyle that can bring you what you want.
Exactly. And on that note, I would like to give your Instagram account a massive shout out. So if anyone is on Instagram, has an Instagram account, is looking for inspiration, please go and make sure you go and follow Aussie Debt Free Girl. You always share fantastic hacks. In fact, I think you've more than a few times inspired me to create some very healthy, nutritious and frugal meals at nighttime. And as I said, I think I actually discovered you when you were refurnishing old bits of furniture that you were finding around. So thank you for all the content you create. Thank you for sharing with everyone right now your story.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Sugar Mama's Fireplay podcast. I am financial planner Canna Campbell. All right, everyone, have a fantastic week. Of course, don't forget to make sure you're following me on Instagram at Sugar Mama TV, because that's where I provide you with all the swipe up links to all of my content the moment it is published. Now, as I said, enjoy the rest of your week, and please feel free to share this podcast with any of your family and friends that you think would benefit from hearing Emily's story. All right, everyone. Ciao for now.